Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Lori, and welcome to Universally Unique, exploring the neurodiverse world of the extraordinary. This podcast fosters curiosity and understanding about neurodiversity while empowering individuals with tools for acceptance and inclusion in classrooms, the workplace, and communities. Featuring shared stories of neurodiverse life experiences, it sheds light on navigating a world not designed for diversity. Universally Unique starts now. Hi, this is Dr. Lori. My guest today is Ecem, and we are going to talk about her journey as a neurodiverse individual. But before we dive into that, we are going to take 3 box breaths. I'll count us through those. We'll breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and we'll do that 3 times. So we'll get started. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and sigh, and we're done. 3 breaths. They say that's all it takes is 3 breaths. So I'm so pleased that you're able to be with me today. Just for our audience, Ecem is coming to us from Turkey, so it took a little bit of, I don't know, math that's beyond my comprehension to figure out how we could do this at times that we were both actually alert and awake, and it wasn't the middle of the night for someone. So if you would share with us your journey, I know that you have had kind of a more recent realization that you are an individual who has spent your life neurodiverse and no one really picked up on it.
Yeah. It has definitely a very recent realization on my end, and realization that also freed me and enabled me further on my own journey in, helping others for sure, but also like functioning at my best. What I can share about my journey is that it's interesting because I always describe myself as someone with peculiarities. And little did I know those peculiarities were, like symptoms of being neurodivergent. Um, I think what I can share, Laurie, is the fact that we chat about with you as well before, the fact that I am not diagnosed, right? Like,
Mhm.
and it almost like I think not being diagnosed, I had hesitations to even share with people from my, inner circle. Like I had this conversation with my mom the other day as well. And I remember a couple of months ago when I was trying to introduce to her what neurodivergency is and all that thing, she was quite like, no, you cannot have that. That was the kind of the attitude that she had. But now a couple of months later, as I embodied more of parts of me makes me who I am,
Exactly.
my people start to go, oh, she's actually more aligned more at flow and more at ease. Um, and yeah, so I think it really, the realizations that I had enabled me to respect my boundaries for sure towards myself first, and then from there, to in my relationship with others too.
I think what happens when folks have a lot of other skills, when you have done well academically, when
Mhm.
you are able to sit in a classroom and do whatever it is a teacher sort of expects from you without causing a lot of disruption or distraction, and you appear to people from the outside to
Mhm.
have been successful. Those are the individuals that oftentimes are overlooked because, well, they're doing fine. They're just a little peculiar, as you described it, or quirky is kind of a word that I always think of. And I think of people that I've known over the years, individuals that I went to school with, who would have never been recognized as being an individual who was neurodivergent, because at the time, if your neurodivergency was not so significant that it impacted your everyday functioning and your academics, people didn't notice it. But I think, oh, so and so that I went to high school with, or this person here that I met in this situation, I always thought they were quirky, and I always sort of liked all the little quirks. I think that's just sort of maybe that's my superpower, is liking all the quirks. But I think they oftentimes were overlooked, and like you, perhaps have carried this thing of something doesn't quite go all together,
Yeah.
but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I totally resonate with what you're saying because just yesterday I mean, I shared this with you that I had my upcoming TED Talk and it was
Yes.
yesterday. And it felt like I shared a couple like turning points, I'm gonna say, in my
Yeah.
life. And all of them were like academic turning points in my life, from middle school to high school to uni, and uni to work life, the career
Yes.
part. And every part, I had the same um, point that I was sharing with the people, saying that I was quote unquote a successful person, a student, because I had good grades, I loved studying, I loved learning. But what created growing pains in me every time is the possibility of only being one thing. So just because I was successful, I was directed towards being an engineer, a mathematician, like a
Hmm.
doctor, those kind of quote unquote reputable
Yeah.
occupation. And I think the neurodivergent part was just like there, of course, like since I was born. But I think one of the very first quote unquote signs for me was that I've never wanted to be only one thing. Because just like how our brains function in ways that it's a bit outside of the box,
Hmm.
just wanting to be one thing, you know, uh, current life, I'm not just a coach. I never liked that. Um, so I think that came as a big struggle for me because you're a successful student. You're a, like you're the what's it? I think you call it TED teacher's pet.
Yes. Yes. That
Yeah.
would be an expression
Uh,
we would use in the United States. Yeah. So
yeah,
you
like
were that
wow.
person, the one that the
Yeah.
teacher always said, "Oh, look, Ajem's doing such a good job. Can everybody
Mm.
else do what she's doing, please?" Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And that creates a pressure on the individual itself because they go, I mean, I go like, oh, I need to know who I should become then because I'm successful already, so I should channel it to somewhere. But it didn't really resonate with me
Didn't
at
feel
all.
comfortable. Yeah.
Mm,
And I think many times people probably who, have an aptitude for something and perhaps are also, folks in the neurodivergent category with you who don't know it, have been directed towards those. You should be an
mm.
engineer, you should be a mathematician, you should be a doctor. I guess in some situations you should be a lawyer. Like
Oh yeah,
those are
definitely.
the prized occupations, and anything other than that in some situations is not necessarily considered all that wonderful. So folks force themselves into those places, but then they're incredibly unhappy.
Mhm.
One of my jobs over the years, and I think you know this, is that I was a university professor. And one of the areas that I provided instruction in was to prepare teachers to go into classrooms to teach students who were like between 5 and 18 or 19 years old. And at least one or two times during the course of a semester, I would have a student who one would consider to be a returning student or a mature student, somebody who's maybe in their 30s or 40s or sometimes even older than that, who said, yeah, I became the business person. I became the lawyer. I became whatever it was that everybody around them thought was important. I was never happy in that situation. I always wanted to be a teacher, and now I'm going to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had a great deal of respect for the fact that they were willing to take that leap, especially given some of the positions that they were in
Mm-hmm.
their the amount of money that you would make as a teacher in comparison to some of the jobs that they had was significantly lower. They were changing their lifestyle and everything, but they were so happy. They were some of the happiest students I had because they'd finally sort of come into their own, so to speak, and
Yeah.
started doing what they wanted to do instead of trying to please other people.
Yeah.
I'm doing what you wanted. And I think sometimes culturally there are certain expectations,
Mm-hmm.
that
Definitely.
you would be a certain thing, um, which I think we're getting better at that. But you know, it's a slow
Mm-hmm.
progress. So tell me, kind of where do you sit with this now? How many folks in your life have you had the opportunity to share this information with? I know you said your mom was a little hesitant at first. My suspicion is, having worked with parents, is she was thinking, "Oh, I thought I made the perfect child, and there some there's a part that's not the way it's supposed to be, so it must be
Yeah.
like it's my fault." But I
Yeah.
bet if you talk to your family, you'll find out that there's relatives back further generations before who were all equally as peculiar,
My
but nobody
dad.
noticed. What?
Oh, my dad. Like I pointed out to my mom when she started to open up. I'm like, Mom, my dad, like this and this behavior of his, the way, and the next day, literally 24, not 24, 12 hours later, when we were sitting out in a cafe or a restaurant was, we were very close to the road, and he was constantly getting overly stimulated with the car noises. And my mom kept saying, I don't know why you get hang on to that. Like I don't even hear it. Whereas I was that I was my dad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I trained myself in a way that I'm not using this word train loosely here, but like when let's say I'm like I have inner turbulence at sometimes, that's noises still disturbs me. But
Yeah.
I know how to isolate myself, and then from there, but he doesn't aware of that.
Well, it'd be
Um,
interesting to see if he learns some strategies from you
yeah.
of how not to be so overstimulated by things like
Mhm.
that. Because I'm anticipating that sitting in a cafe close to the road is kind of a way of life when you
Yeah.
live in a large city. If
Mhm.
you want to go outside, maybe you may have to get close to cars. So maybe you can teach him a few strategies without telling him that he belongs
Definitely.
in the same grouping that you're in.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think parents have a tendency to anticipate, well, if my child is not perfect, whatever that means, that they will have a harder life. And sometimes not recognizing that life was hard before you figured this part out. And you've had like, an aha moment where you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
now I know.
I think
Now
I
I know
gave
what
you
it is." Yeah.
I think I gave you this example when in our previous chat, Lori. It was my partner who pointed out to me, not that I shouldn't say pointed out. She was more so very much like invited me to, why don't you explore this part of you? Not like verbally she did it in the beginning, but then there came a point she literally asked me like, "Can you be on the spectrum?" And she thought I was going to be offended. I was like, "No, I'm not offended." And I remember because it's not something that there's no offense to be taken there.
Yeah.
But I remember for the next 2 weeks after that conversation, I would just keep journaling and writing about these are the ways how it can show up, how it is showing up. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just such a homecoming for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really, really like if I were to be dramatic, life-changing point for me
Yeah.
because it felt like everything, all the quote unquote peculiarities of mine was just, centered around this quote unquote again diagnose.
Yeah.
And from there, I both embodied, but then at the same time freed myself from it too.
Yeah.
Because if I were to give one example from two different perspectives, I'm someone who cannot really control their body temperature. I'm either very hot or very cold.
Mm-hmm.
So when I especially go out, I put a lot of layers, and then in 5 minutes, max 10, I'm gonna take off those layers. And the way I always said it is just I'm sweating. Not hot, but I'm sweating.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember many years my dad pointed out to me that, oh, you're not hot, you're sweating immediately. And it was like, they joked about this, but it didn't click me until I met my partner and we were going around and I was hot. And this time she offered to hold my jacket instead of, why are you hot? Are you sweaty all of a sudden? And then from there, I realized, oh, this is again, quote unquote, one of my peculiarities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and from there, like just on a even physiological level, there is so much more ease that I feel being in this body as well.
I mean, that's just so wonderful because when you don't feel good in the body that you're walking around in, I think that makes so many other things so
Yeah.
much more difficult. And unfortunately, I think it starts leading to some of the challenges that we see with individuals who identify as being autistic. It it seems that that group is unfortunately a group of individuals that depression is high and diagnosed or undiagnosed. Anxiety is high, diagnosed or undiagnosed. And data, at least here in the United States, is that one of the highest numbers of people who are dying by suicide are autistic individuals and even higher autistic individuals that identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community, that they feel so disconnected or so unappreciated. I don't know anybody in that category who has uh, wanted to die by suicide, so I'm kind of answering this based on things that I've read. But that's a travesty to me, and not something, it's a travesty when anybody dies by suicide, but I think it's an even greater travesty when a group of individuals that we could have very clearly made feel welcome is feeling like they don't belong,
Hmm.
and that's their only option,
Hmm.
which is a very, very sad thing about the world. When you and I chatted the last time, you kind of shared with me that you have this ability to pull a number of pieces of information, whether we want to call them data points or different things that are kind of going on, sort of together, and figure out how it all works and why it goes together, or like as many pieces that could be flying around as possible seems to be better for you, like more
Hmm.
plates in the air,
Hmm.
more exciting, and then you somehow figure out how to put them together. They all come down in a nice neat little pile. So could you talk about that a little bit?
I call it a web of threads most of the time. I'm good at it's more so like more than being good at it's literally how I see the world.
Mm-hmm.
For example, it has been said that one go see the world, so the world in colors and different
Mm-hmm.
shades of it. I feel like I'm seeing the world as like web of different threads. How my mind makes sense of the world is very much through connecting, pulling all these threads and combining them and create the connection between them, or more so reveal the connection between them. Um, it's funny because I think in this moment it reminded me of there is this theory, let's say, called red string theory.
Hmm.
That is called, like it is believed that people, all of us, are tied to each other with invisible red strings.
Ah.
Um, and when I heard that years ago for the first time, it resonated deeply with me. The kind of soul connection that I started to feel at that time with some people, and now, very luckily, many people that I have around me, if not, 90%, that I have deep soul connections. So since the time that I learned about that theory, it felt like whether it's with people, whether it's with situations, whether it's the things that I know and realized about world, the way I've been collecting them, it feels like I'm seeing and revealing the red strings between events or between the things that is apparent in my mind. So much so that I have a tattoo of a red line on my back, representing it's invisible. I cannot
Hmm.
see it. But
Yeah.
I think if we dare to see it, that's how my brain works. If we dare to see, if we open our hearts, it is visible to the human eye as well.
I
So,
love that. It, I mean, it describes kind of how you think, but I think it also describes what happens when you meet somebody like for the very first time and you feel connected to them.
mhm,
As you're just like, do I already know you somehow? Like, and I guess if people believe that we've had past lives, you might think, well, I must have known you in another life, and now I've re-met you. But I think most people have had at least one or two people in their life. The minute they meet them, they feel instantly like they've known them forever.
yeah.
And that must be that red string connecting
Yeah.
everybody together. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we all realized that we were all connected together and we stopped trying to push away people that we think that we're not connected to?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think when I first learned about that theory, I thought about, in between people.
Yeah.
But it's not really the case. It's more so between energies and between
Hmm.
everything that emits frequency.
Yeah.
So an event or a place, a plant, doesn't matter. So how it correlates with that web of thread, the way I weave things um together is um it's exactly how it feels like when I receive an information, or I use this word in my world most of the time, when something stirs my water, it feels like it moves all the other things that I have in my water, and from there my brain starts to pull them together and say that this is the thread for today or for this moment.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
I mean, just to be able to think that way, and especially given your coaching work, to be able to take what may seem like to other people a bunch of tangents that a person's going on. It looks like they have no direction, they're wandering around, and you're pulling all the pieces of information that they're giving you, and then you sort of, summarize that for them or whatever, and then they realize, oh,
yeah.
that's the road that I'm supposed to be on. But I couldn't figure out because I kept getting myself turned around. But you clarified it for me. I mean,
Mhm.
I know as a coach, one is not supposed to go that way. That's the road you're supposed to be on. But if you help them process the information, then they figure it out. Otherwise, they just keep probably running around in
Yeah.
circles.
That's why I always deeply value, and I say this to my clients and to people in my life as well, but say it more so with the way I hold the space more than my
Mhm.
words. Bring the tangents. Tangents are welcome. Tangents are part of the journey, part of the story,
Yeah,
because that's literally I need to pull threads from somewhere. So you have
yeah,
to give me something. The
yeah,
way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you randomly start talking about this, irritation that you experienced last night towards your partner, anything and everything will do. Uh, Um, So, yeah, in that sense, it's very much of that. I do reflect to my clients, but because of this quote unquote advantage, how my brain works is I pull so many things together and I give them something. They go, "Oh, did I say all of this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just brought them together and bring it to you."
Yeah.
So that's why I like some time ago I described coaching as being the weaver of three different time zones, past, present, future, and then bringing all of them to this specific moment as just, passing by as we were talking through it. Because, we bring everything. If we were to weave everything to this person in front of us, they are giving us everything. They are future aspirations, they are past stories. If we were to weave them to them, they're gonna see it, and from there they can move towards
They
their
can move
future.
forward. Yeah. Yeah. And that
Um,
usually, by the time that somebody decides that they need a coach, whether it's a life coach or a career coach or, some other type of coach, um, they've probably been running around in circles for a long time and they know they're running around in circles and they don't know how to get out. So
mhm.
you are helping them see what is right in front of them, but they can't see. As you first started to describe all of it, I kept imagining this like really beautiful piece of cloth that is
Mm.
developed by, a bunch of different colors um, of yarn or string, whatever it happens to be. And then you go, here it is.
You
Yeah.
give me goosebumps.
Here's your piece, and I've put it all together. I'm trying to be cognizant at the time because usually that the producer keeps me on track. And so I think we have maybe just a few more minutes because I think we started a little bit after the hour. So I think we probably have maybe about 5 more minutes. So what are you looking forward to now that you feel like you kind of have an answer for some of the loose ends, the loose strings that were in your life?
I'm looking forward to create more. Um, I describe what I do in different ways in different times of my life, but at my core, I'm a creator. I'm an artist. That's how I
Mhm.
see myself. Sometimes the way I articulate my truth, or sometimes the way I weave things together is through words, it's through writing, it's through spoken words, sometimes through poetry, sometimes through holding a conversation, sometimes through with a client on a coaching session. But I'm on a path where I'm nowadays selfishly creating. So writing is definitely one of the ways, and I'm this deep pull that I'm feeling towards that, and the way my mind is weaving different parts of my own story and pouring it out. That's where
Mhm.
I'm being pulled to nowadays.
Wow.
Um, so
I
yeah.
think it's wonderful that you're hearing this and you're answering what it is
Mm.
that you're basically telling yourself. Many people have things that they're interested in or that they know that they would be good at or that they would like to be doing, but they refuse to listen to that. So I think it's wonderful that you're listening to, I guess, what I want to call an inner voice is
Yeah.
telling you to do these things.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for recognizing that, Lori, because when I say like this, maybe it may be heard, oh, it's like a glorious process. You just, create your pull towards it. It's a very messy process
yeah,
to spread yourself too thin and then bring yourself back to the center and view things together. Specific if it's your story as well.
yeah,
It's a very much of a like birthing pain
yeah,
almost.
yeah. I've
Um,
I've listened to quite a few authors talk about, you know, not so much their writing process, so to speak, but writing, period. And because I'm not a writer, that's something that's just not, that's a painful skill for me. Despite the fact that I managed to get multiple degrees, it was still very painful. Um, that they say things like, I don't just sit down and start banging something out on the computer. It hurt, like it's painful. It's hard. It is, and I think you described it. It's like a birthing process. Like, you know, Here's a page. Nope, erase the page, start over, sit down, stare, nothing coming today. Other days, maybe things come, but it's not, I think for folks that are not creative, they have this vision that the person that made that painting or the person who made those clothes or the person who wrote that book just poured it all out. And it was
Mhm.
really actually probably quite painful to get to whatever it is that we saw as the end product.
It's confronting for
Hmm.
sure. And
Yeah.
any confrontation is not necessarily comfortable or, easeful. But I can say one thing. As I show up more and more, it gets more attainable. It gets more, I receive more
Hmm.
instead of chase and try to do more. Um, Words feel more accessible. My own story to myself feels more accessible. So, does it get easier? Not sure if it's easier, but it's definitely more attainable. I
Yeah.
can receive more.
Maybe slightly less painful. Still painful, but not quite as painful as it was before. Um, so how do you think, I'm curious to know how neurodivergence is accepted in Turkey. Are folks kind of, are they welcoming the idea? Is it something that people are still hesitant to try to understand? I don't have a real sense of the culture there or the educational system. So if you I'm curious.
Well, I'm not the best person to ask, because I feel like I'm physically living in this country, but my mind and my emotions migrated a long time ago. So I feel like, yeah, like I don't know the place that I live so much, but and also the way my brain works different language in different languages. My inner talk is in English.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so when it comes to thinking in Turkish, I need to expose myself to that language for some time, maybe a couple of hours a day so that I can start finding the words in it. When I was trying to have this conversation with my mom recently about neurodivergency and all that, I couldn't think of the Turkish word for it. And I was like, is there a Turkish word for it? So do not quote me on that if there is one or not. But
Yep, I don't
um
know.
yeah.
I have no knowledge of Turkish. So, but
Yeah.
Turkish was your heritage language. You grew up
Yeah, it's my
speaking
native
Turkish.
tongue. Yeah. Yeah.
How,
It's my
and interesting. How many languages do you speak?
I mean, two as, fluent, Turkish and English. I do understand three more.
Wow.
Um, so yeah,
I
and
think all the the strings, I think are a piece of that as well. Your ability to pull all of that together.
yeah, yeah, that's the part that my brain pushes its limits and capacity when it comes to, interchangeability of language. But just to answer your question quickly, I think this country is very much of like it's a bit behind to the rest of the world,
Hmm.
maybe like 5 years, 10 years even. So much so that when I speak to other people, who are slightly older than me, they go, "Oh, you wouldn't know about this." I'm like, I actually do.
Hmm.
Yes, like because the kind of technological devices that you grew up in, I barely like, we barely had them at the
Yeah.
age that I was at. So same thing goes with like developments and when it comes to like education as well. Therapy, psychotherapy have seen as crazy people go kind of a approach
Hmm.
for so long. And maybe in the last very recent years that it started to go like, oh, okay, maybe, maybe it's useful. But again, it's not widely accepted. And the fact that just taking my mom into consideration, she's a very, open-minded individual and all that. But the way she's, no, you cannot be on the spectrum. You know, like you don't even look like that, she said to me. I'm like, Mom,
Yeah,
that's not what it is.
you can't see it. It's not an
So,
outward characteristic. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But I do think that oftentimes there are people who don't know very much about individuals that aren't are not like them, individuals that may have genetic disorders or whatever, and they have a belief that you would be able to see it. Like
Mm,
if you were looking at a person who had Down syndrome, you know that you're looking at a person who has
yeah.
Down syndrome. So I think they think if I'm looking at an autistic individual, I can see it. And it's
Mm,
like, nope, I give you hundreds of pictures and tell you there's this many people who have autism in these pictures, and except by luck or, whatever the probability is, you would not know who's who.
yeah.
Unless it was like a famous person that people kind of knew, somebody that
Mm,
had openly come out and said, "Hey, I have autism." So
mhm.
I do think that our time is kind of wrapping up. I do want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I very much appreciate the fact that you were willing to share this information. I think it's something that you're still kind of working on sharing with people
Mhm.
in your personal life, and the fact that you've allowed me to ask questions so that you shared more of it in a bigger forum. I'm very grateful for that, because I do think there are many people who are finding that some of the reasons that they've struggled, and some of the reasons that some things are hard for them, or that it just takes so much energy out of them, are starting to find out that there are other things that are coming into play, and that when they know what those things are, then they know what to do about it.
Yeah.
When you didn't know what it was, you didn't know what strategies or, what information you could get. You probably fell into some things. You probably found some things that worked for you. But now that you know what you're researching, you can look in a more specific direction. So,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
yeah, I very much appreciate you spending this time with me. I'm glad that we were
Right.
able to find some time that we were both alert and awake to
Yeah.
talk. Um, I'm fascinated by, hearing about things in other countries as well, and how folks are processing the information that they have. So,
Thank you for today's chat. I really, really enjoyed it as well, because I think why I especially wanted to have this conversation today with you was the fact that, I mean, I told you this as well. I am not diagnosed, and there are like millions of people who are not diagnosed.
yeah,
And let me tell you as well, I don't feel a need to be diagnosed either, at least today, tomorrow,
yeah,
right? Like in the near future. But I think what it was for me is that as soon as all the arrows, so to say, pointed out to one specific spot, I'm like, okay, let me try to understand here. But I'm not that. It's
yeah,
just the one way that I function. And from there,
yeah,
I'm like making sense of it. And, I'm still, you said it well, I'm still in the process of understanding myself more than anything. And that's why I really wanted to, have this conversation today more than anything, because I it's quote unquote easier when you go through a process and then you start quote unquote again preaching people that, oh, this is what I got. But it's a bit more challenging to speak right from the messy middle.
yeah.
And I'm still in there. So
Yeah.
I was
Well, I
hoping it
think
would.
the messy middle is going to be the middle for many of us for a long, long time. I think we all have this vision that there's an end point to things. And I think we spend probably most of our life in the messy middle,
Mm,
hoping that we have gotten to the end of something, but and unfortunately we may not get to the end of anything until it's like the real end.
yes.
So on that happy note, no, I very, very much appreciate you sharing your story with me, and I look forward to being able to stay connected with you in the future.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you for listening to Universally Unique, exploring the neurodiverse world of the extraordinary. Join me, Dr. Lori, on Transformation Talk Radio every second and fourth Monday at 11:30 Pacific Time as we continue to explore navigating a world not designed for diversity. For advocacy and support for individuals with disabilities, let's connect. Learn more about consulting and life coaching at notoholisticconsulting.com.